Welcome to the Lou Riley Live Show, a podcast about health, wellness, motivation, and success. Now, here's your host, Mr. Lou Riley.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is, where you are while you're listening to this podcast. Just want to wish you a great day. This is Lou Riley coming at you once again from Nashville, Tennessee with another episode of the Lou Riley Show. I want to first of all thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to my podcast, hearing what I've got to say. It means a whole lot when you start to get feedback from folks and people begin to look forward to you sharing something that you've had bottled up inside, you know. I'm sure that there were some fears working on me in so many different ways that prevented me from putting this effort out. But I'm getting a little more comfortable doing this. And as I've stated in my earliest podcast, I know that show number 100 is going to be a lot better than show number 1. So I'm interested and I'm committed to following through with the journey and seeing where this path takes me. Quick housekeeping note, I want to definitely encourage you to subscribe to my podcast on iTunes. You can download my episodes to your mobile phone, your tablet, or what have you. And you can listen to me whenever you choose. Sometimes it's not a great time. You know, I've got a different schedule. My days are kind of open. And a lot of times folks are at work. But, you know, I like listening to podcasts either when I'm exercising or when I'm getting ready for my day or I'm cleaning the house or doing something of that nature. And maybe you're like that as well. So I definitely encourage you to download my podcast, Lou Riley Live, on iTunes and store it away for later. So today we're gonna go back into those things that kill our dreams, those things that keep us away from the things that we want to be. And I want to take a minute to recap from last week's episode to offer a couple of solutions into that. Some things that can definitely help you avoid those people in our lives that initially tell us all the things that we can't be. And I want to move into the second obstacle and begin to touch on that. So with that being said, here we go. So last week, and I'll read it once again, and this is so powerful for me, and I won't get tired of hearing this for a while. But the first obstacle towards people not fulfilling their dreams is that from childhood, we're told that everything that we want to do is impossible. And we grew up with that idea. And as the years accumulate, so do those layers of prejudice, fear, and guilt. There comes a time when our personal calling is so deeply buried in our soul as to be invisible, but it's still there. And after I finished the podcast last week, I really had a chance to think. And I wanted to, try to give you guys examples, and I think I did a couple of times in the earlier podcast, the one right before this one, an example by way of giving examples of who those dream killers are. And if you have not listened to that, I encourage you to go back and do so. But if not, it's easy to identify enemies at some level because they're the people who are overtly against us. They talk bad about us. They don't encourage us. The air and the vibe just changes when we're around those people. They're definitely not on our side. But if all of our enemies were visible or were so well known, life would be a pretty easy navigation. Now, I'm going to use the word enemies. I'm going to stick a couple of air quotes around the word enemies and maybe morph from enemies into roadblocks or detractors. And the interesting part is if you live long enough, you'll understand that those who stand in the way of our dreams, or those that we can allow to stand in the way of our dreams, are sometimes called mother and father, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, their best friends. They are our teachers. They are our people in the clergy. They are people in the community. They're people who, to the best of their capability. And I'm going to assume, and I know for a fact, many of them come from a place of love, but sometimes the best advice they could give, or the best thing they can do when you communicate your dreams, if they can't add to what you want to be in a constructive way, And constructive not always means positive, but be constructive about it. The best thing they can do is step aside and let us become what it is we're going to become. One of the things, and probably the most important thing that you can arm yourself with, the most important thing you can have in your toolbox at an early state when it comes to recognizing your dreams and continually believing in them, is to have a strong sense of self, to have a strong sense of who you are. And that can happen at a very early age. And you don't have to necessarily know at an early age all of the things that you want to be. So, for example, there's a picture that I have somewhere, and I'll post it again at some point in time. I always had a very vivid imagination, and I was blessed to be born in a situation where it was encouraged. Okay, I had a chance to read a lot. You know, you would fantasize about being things. You know, superheroes were big in my day. And there's a picture that I have of me with one of my uncle's dress shirts. But understand, I would take his dress shirt and I would button the top button around my neck and let the rest of the shirt drape down my back. Because in my mind, this dress shirt was my cape. I was a superhero. And when I see that picture, and I can remember a few years ago when I had, it was brought to me, because it had been a few years since I had seen it and gone inside a family photo album since I moved away from home. I saw that picture and I could just laugh, and I got goosebumps to the point where tears start to form in my eyes, because what I saw was the fact that I always believed I was supposed to be something special. I always believed that. And throughout my time, it did not matter whoever said what to me in regards to what I can't do. If I believed I could do it, that was good enough for me. Another example, I can remember I was about 4 years old. I was 4 years old or 5. Maybe I was 5 years old. You know, kindergarten's a half day. And I can remember a cab taking me to daycare. Now, at that time, and I watched a good little bit of TV at that time, you know, The Lone Ranger was out. And The Lone Ranger, if you don't know, there's a Disney movie coming up about it. Again, I don't get endorsements by Disney, yet I'm talking about Disney. I got to fix that. But there's a movie coming out, a remake of The Lone Ranger. But The Lone Ranger was hot stuff in my day and time. I mean, he was a good guy. He was a tough guy. He was cool. He was smooth about what he did. And, you know, heck, when you outside playing and you get to use your imagination, well, shoot, I'm going to be the Lone Ranger. And the Lone Ranger was a cowboy. And so in my mind, when I was having those thoughts of being more than where I was or what I was a cowboy. I had fun being a cowboy. And I can remember my mom bought me a pair of cowboy boots. So not only was I a cowboy, I had the boots to prove it. So I can remember being in daycare, wearing my cowboy boots and jeans, and see all the cool cowboys on TV tuck their jeans inside their boots. Now, we're talking around 1976, okay? 1976, but follow the story. Follow the story. I can remember having my boots tucked inside my jeans. Again, I was a cowboy. In my mind, I was a cowboy. I believed it. Boots are tucked in my jeans. I'm walking around daycare. It might have been around nap time, or we had to go to another area. I remember this vividly. One of the teachers said, she looked at me, she said, "Boy, you ain't no cowboy. Take those jeans out of your boots." Being a child and being raised to be obedient, especially when it came to adults and those who are responsible for you, I obliged. You know, I took a little blow to my esteem, but I took my jeans out of my boots, followed directions. And I can remember when I went into the next room, I tucked my jeans back in my boots because I was a cowboy. You know, it didn't matter what she had to say. It didn't matter what she thought, because once I believed it, it had to be real. And there's some of you who are born with that type tenacity, with that type that type spark inside of you. And God bless you for those who are and continue to nourish it. And at the same time, there are those who didn't have the type upbringing that provided that type mentality. But you know what? There's a way for you to achieve that type mentality no matter what age you are. Doesn't matter how old you are, but you can achieve that type mentality. And you do that through a thing that are called affirmations. You do it through affirmations. And affirmations are the repetition of a phrase or a thought or a belief. And you repeat it to yourself so many times. And I'm not talking about, okay, I want to become a mountain climber. I'm a mountain climber. I'm a mountain climber. I'm a mountain climber. And hey, all of a sudden I'm a mountain climber. No. It may take you months. It may take you years to consistently reaffirm those things that you want to do, those things that you want to be inside your mind until it becomes a part of your fiber. And it's no longer can you do a thing? It's that yes you can do. It's second nature to for that affirmation to come into play. And one of my greatest heroes, Muhammad Ali, professional boxer, the greatest of all times, the most recognizable sports figure in the world for a great period of time. Those of you younger people, I'm sure you've heard of him. I encourage you to YouTube, to Google his quotes, his life. He's just an awesome example of so many great things, of so many other things that are great about athletes, human just like the rest of us, but a great story, great set of examples. Okay. And I'll get into Ali in just a second, but I want to go back into talking about these affirmations. And probably, not probably, but in order for these affirmations, or the importance of the affirmations is that if you're somebody who's surrounded by negativity, then you got to change your surroundings. And not only change your surroundings, you've got to change the people you're around. And not only change the people, you've got to change that programming inside your head. It's like a radio station inside your head, and the minute you're faced with a critical decision that calls for you to step outside your comfort zone, the things that you have allowed to be affirmations, be they positive or be they negative, are going to be your first responses. It's going to be your first responses. If you're looking for a job and you see something that you know that you're qualified for, but maybe that's a little bit above what you're comfortable with, your first thought is going to be, that probably they're not going to hire me. They're not going to hire you. And as it said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are absolutely right. So it's very important. Now let's go beyond importance. It is essential to your survival to begin developing affirmations that are going to replace the negative thoughts that were automatically inserted when you come upon a challenging situation. You will hear multiple motivational speakers, your Tony Robbins, your Les Browns, people of that ilk, people of that nature. They all have something to say about changing those messages that you send to yourself. About someone going to call it self-hypnosis. Some may call it that. But it's all about changing those automatic messages that come to you. And trust, I understand that when you are born in a given situation, that stuff runs so deep, people truly don't realize how strong and powerful that call is. That call is so strong until people will literally snatch defeat from the hands of victory. Yes, I said that. They will snatch defeat from the hands of victory. And we go into that depressive cycle, that depressive process. And I've been there so many times before. And there were things that I began to read and things that I began to latch onto that started to help me better understand how to navigate my way out of that. I can recall At first, it was presented as Nelson Mandela's inaugural speech, but I later learned that the actual author was Marianne Williamson. And I've shared this with a number of kids that I used to coach and have some level of mentoring with. And the quote, and it's a longer quote, and I encourage you to Google this. Just type in "Our Greatest Fears" quote or "Our Greatest Fears" speech. Just Google that and you get the text in its entirety for your own reading, for your own purposes, edification, or what have you. But it simply says in the beginning, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Guys, that is a person who is afraid of success. Our deepest fear isn't that we are inadequate, but rather our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. You see, that power that we possess, others are made to feel small around it. And when people feel small, when you are in that powerful place, when you are doing, and let me explain that powerful place. If you are a dancer, if dancing is your passion, if dancing is what you're supposed to be doing, when you are doing your thing, when you're dancing, when you're expressing yourself through movement, and others feel small around you, that's a great sign that those are the people you probably don't need to have in your circle. Okay? If you're a writer, if you are an artist, if you are a poet, if you are an athlete, again, if people begin to shrink around you and are comfortable around you and would rather you not be in your element, then that's a great sign that those are probably some of the people you need to begin exiting out of your life. Okay? Now, let me get back to my Muhammad Ali piece, because I got to talk about this. But Muhammad Ali and his affirmations, those things that he told himself, that he told the media. And I think that many times when he was talking to the media, in part, yes, it was for show, and he tapped into to pulling the media into him, to making himself the center of attention. But there were several things that were going on, because number one, he was saying these things to himself. Number two, the media was going to report it, so now the public's going to have a reaction to it. Either they're going to love him for it or they're going to hate him for it. And there are millions that did one of the two, sometimes both at some point in time along his athletic career. But also his opponent was also getting that message. So I want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong on the year, I don't have any analysts in here, or I don't have a statistician. I do all my research right now by myself. But I want to say it was 1964 when he fought his first title fight. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but the energy and the reasoning behind the story is what's pertinent, not the exact dates and such. But in 1964, before he fought his first heavyweight championship fight, Muhammad Ali, it was against Sonny Liston. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I want to say Sonny Liston. But Ali, way before he ever won a championship, let the world know that he was the greatest of all time. Now, hold on. Who is this kid? Yes, he had some success in the amateur ranks and in the Olympics, but he's about to go up against a professional fighter, a mauler. Somebody who's proven, but who was this kid to step out and say he was the greatest of all time? And depending on where you are in your own development, you're going to take that a certain way. The initial thing is that you're going to say he's arrogant. Who does he think he is? But if you look behind the statement, I believe Ali was talking to himself. I believe that he was creating a situation in which there was no other way out than to go through his words and prove that he was the greatest of all time. And not only did he win that first heavyweight championship fight to become a world champion for the first time, but because he had already stated that he was the greatest of all time, that is what the people began to believe about him. So that he no longer had to ever say I'm the greatest of all time. There are millions upon millions of people who will say that when he shows up, when he comes up in conversation. That is how strong an affirmation can be, until you not only convince yourself, but you convince the world of just that which you believe. When you believe it with every core of your being, with every fiber that you're created from, with every cell, every tissue, every organ, every system, when you believe beyond belief in a thing, then the world has no other choice than to say, well, maybe he's right. Maybe he's on to something. So just wanted to share that little bit with you guys about the power of affirmations. A quick one is, instead of crying about or saying, try this. The next time something negative happens to you, say to yourself, instead of saying, why me? Let's do this cognitive shift. I used to be a therapist at one time. Let's shift that for a minute and begin saying, why not me? Can we do that? The next time something negative occurs in your life, instead of having that automatic statement which says, why me? Or why me, Lord? Why not ask or switch that and say, why not me? And the importance of doing that is because I believe that everything that occurs or happens to us is for a reason. We're supposed to get something out of it. So begin asking yourself, and I'm not saying that's going to take away the negative feelings or the hurt or the pain, but you've got to ask yourself, what is it am I supposed to learn through this thing? What is it that I'm supposed to take from it? What is it that I'm supposed to learn? Am I supposed to pass this on to somebody? Is there something coming further down in my life that this is going to come into play? Find out what you're supposed to get from every incident or every occurrence in your life. And then you will begin to not frown when negative things come, or even better yet, when challenges come. When I think negative, my mind goes straight to worst type scenarios, death and injury and things of that nature. But also, when we are in the process of becoming the person that we're supposed to become, when you're losing that weight you're supposed to lose, and you're in that process, you got to ask yourself, what am I supposed to learn? Every time I tried losing weight and I failed, at the time I thought it was failure. And for the past year and a half, it's like all those things that I learned from those times when I didn't reach the goal that I thought I was going to reach are now coming back into play. And there are lessons that I have been able to give back to myself to help guide me through the things I'm experiencing now. I'm on a great run right now. But if it was not for those negatives, if it was not for those quote unquote failures that give me an opportunity to learn, to grow and develop, folks, you've got to learn how to not become so upset when you meet with adversity. Adversity is going to give you, or when you begin seeing adversity as opportunity, you begin shifting and changing your mindset. You begin taking control of your life and becoming everything that you are supposed to be. But I guarantee you it's not going to happen overnight, because it wasn't overnight that the negatives took place. These things don't change overnight. They change over consistency. They change over consistency. Whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to graduate from college, whether you're trying to write a book, whether or not you are trying to open your own business, become an entrepreneur, whether or not you're going after a job, whether or not, whatever it is, you change that mindset, you change your situation. Guys, this is Lou Riley. Sorry I didn't get to the rest of it. My time's running out. But I'll be back with you all probably this week with another podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Once again, make sure you visit me on iTunes. Check out Lou Riley Live. Subscribe to my podcast. Click the like button. Leave a comment on iTunes. Give me a 5-star. Give me 2 thumbs up. Show me some love on iTunes. Guys, thank you once again. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of the day. I got some stuff to do. Take care, guys. I'm out.